Hi, I'm Anissa.
I'm Sophie Hannah.
I'm Tariyé.
I'm Monah, and welcome to episode 60 of Ethnically Speaking, the show where we discuss everything affecting the UK's highly melanated communities, from pop culture to current affair and everything in between. We always keep it 100, and today we will be talking about the new consequences of not paying child support. The UK has announced that the Department of Work and Pensions will now be allowed to revoke anyone's passport who hasn't paid their child maintenance. Also, they will be allowed to reject the renewal of passports for up to 2 years. Many people feel that the child maintenance system is broken and open to manipulation. That being said, is it the right solution or is it justified to be able to revoke somebody's passport? Will it enable people to pay their child maintenance? Or is there justified reasons as to why they're not able to pay, and this could arguably be the wrong decision? Ladies, let's jump straight into the topic. What are our thoughts on this?
Oh. Okay, so this is like a very tricky question because a lot of me, like when I first read this, I was like, oh, wow, yes, because I was just liking the action that was being taken against absentee parents. So I was like, oh, yeah, this is perfect. But then when I really started to think about it, it was like, okay, I'm happy that action's being taken against absentee parents. However, I'm not sure if this is the right action. And I just say, because, like, your passport is like your identification. I don't know, like, it's like, it's your document. I don't know if I like the idea of the government or a government body stepping in and taking that away from you. And for me, it's like, what will the gateway be then? Like, if you don't do X, are they going to take this away from you? It's like putting more control over the person. And so that's what I don't specifically like, because I think it will be a gateway move. However, do I feel like, yes, I'd be happier that the deadbeats can't go to Dubai? Absolutely. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you, because I feel like they should be at home looking after their kids. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, who hates deadbeat dads? I do. Like, I don't like them. I would like to be more severe punishment. I'm one of those people that feels like, I don't have any kids. And I actually only have one friend that has a kid, and he's a man and he's a good father. But the point is, I feel like, though, for single mothers, and a lot of single mothers that I've heard of, and some single fathers who are not getting any support from their child's other parent, and they may have put them on, I think it's child maintenance now, that they've called it. So that first of all, that whole child maintenance thing is quite flawed. I'll just leave it at that one point, and I'll circle back to it. But the child maintenance, it's just like, you can skip out on paying it sometimes, and sometimes they don't chase you, or sometimes they make it the wrong amount, and it's just a bit of a mess. And so it's like, it needs sorting out. So before they step in and say, well, actually, if you're not paying it, your passport gets taken away, they actually need to sort out that whole system first, because it has a lot of flaws. I'll say that.
Yeah, also, because I heard about this decision, I read up about the decision, and I was just like, okay, but if the person doesn't pay because they just haven't got it, what is removing their passport going to do? Where are they going? Presumably, if they haven't got the money for child support, they don't have money for anything else. Because, that's the thing. I just didn't understand why so punitive. For what reason? Now, that's not to say that I think that deadbeat parents should just be allowed to flit on through with no consequences at all, and there shouldn't be an action taken to make sure that they pay child maintenance. But this, as an action, this doesn't really do anything aside from just disproportionately affect poor parents, I feel.
I mean, I think there's a lot of men who can pay child maintenance but choose not to and are still going on holiday. I don't think it's just down to poverty. There are men who would just literally don't want the responsibility of having a child. So
yes, Sophie.
So I can't even say it's poverty. Like, oh, if they had no, they'll find a way to go out with their boys and to go and do all manner of things, and then their child is left. And I just feel, guys, I feel very strongly about this. I'm like, take the passport, take the car, take their house, take whatever you need to take. Take whatever you need to take. A child needs to be looked after. And when you lie down I don't care if the condom broke. I don't care if she lied to you, if she trapped you. If you lie down and have sex, there's a risk that someone's going to get pregnant or an STD. Those are the risks you take. And if you don't be crying about the consequences if you know what, if something happened that you didn't want to. And I mean this for men and women. We both sexes need to be much more speculative in the people that we choose to lay down with. And someone said something to me when I was younger, and I think unconsciously I've just lived my life by it. But it's like, don't lay down with someone who you wouldn't want to be married to or have a child with, because that's the risk that you take. And I think for women, make sure that you're on contraception. Make sure that he's using contraception on top of the contraception that you're using. Make sure you're not sleeping with the guy who you don't really know or randomly, because if you end up having his child, you can't complain about the sort of treatment like he's not, if you didn't even know him or you were trying to entrap him and you didn't get what you wanted. And I think for men, like, I'm not here for, oh, she trapped me and this and that. You chose the woman that you want. You based it on looks. You didn't place it on who she was. Or you liked it when she was feisty and rude, but now when she's the mum and she's feisty and rude and she's not letting you see your child. This is the risk you took. This is the risk you took. So be selective. Like, you choose who you have sex with the majority of the time. So, like, pay the child support. Like, if you can... I'm sorry, guys. It just makes me so upset. Like, there are innocent children being brought into these situations, and child support for some people is £50 a week, £80 a week. If you can't afford that, don't have sex. Just strap it up. Don't do it. Keep it in
And you should be
trousers.
paying more.
Exactly.
I agree.
Exactly. Because when you're talking about you can't afford it, can the mum afford it? Do those child's needs stop when your income goes down? Like, if your income needs to be recalculated, no problem. But I'm just like, this child is going to continue to grow, continue to be fed, all of these things. And this is the responsibility of this child having your DNA. You are responsible for them. So whatever that needs to happen, if they need to take the detriment away and take your passport, do it. I'm here for it.
I completely agree with you, Sophie. I'm 100% back in what you're saying. I think that I'm not going to sit here and lie and say that it is not an extreme resort, because it's really unfair that the responsibility of a child can be put on one parent. And I know that there's an African proverb that says it takes a village to raise a child, which is very true. It does take a village to raise a child, but it takes two individuals to make the child. So two individuals should step up to the plate and do what they need to do. Now, I've been in this circumstance where I've actually had to care for a child that wasn't my child, but I had to care for a child, and I got thrown into motherhood straight away, and it was no joke. And the things that were going through my mind is like, if I was to lay with someone, I would 100% like to make sure that the person who I'm laying with is someone who I know is a good person in the sense that you wouldn't run away from your responsibilities, because it is easy to say that, okay, well, you know what, yeah, only sleep with people that you can see yourself getting married to. But really and truly putting that into practice, I don't actually think is applicable for every single individual. If you take into account drunken nights, one night stands, whatever people get in their sexual life, I'm not too sure. But yeah, it's not always feasible to say that people can implement this practice into their day-to-day life. So these things do happen, but just trying to make sure that you guys are on the same page, that if something was to happen, you know, you guys would be able to raise this child, commit to, even if you're not committed to each other, raise the child. And I think, like Sophie said, if you have to take everything you have to take, then it has to be done, because there are a lot of cases, like the statement said, where people do manipulate the child maintenance system. And even though they're not able to afford money for their kids, but I still see you in the new get up. I still see you being able to, you can go to work, you can pay for your travel, you can eat. That kid still needs to eat. That kid still needs to be clothed. That kid, do you know what I mean? So how do those things get done for yourself, but not for your child? And unfortunately, there are people who are running around and they don't think about these things. So if severe consequences need to get put in check, then I'm here for it.
But you see, I think, like, even with severe consequences and passports and things like that, I don't know if that's even going to give them the push to want to do it. Like, legally, they may have to, obviously, to get themselves out of the situation. But for me, if you didn't want to take care of your child before, like, I don't know how much this is going to incentivize you to take care of your child outside of your legal obligation. Does that make sense? Like, I feel like once again, I keep hating to say like the cheating was a character flaw, but not taking care of your kid is a character flaw. So I feel like if out of the sheer knowing that you've created a human being that is your kid and that is not enough for you to want to take care of it, then them taking your passport, some people might be like, okay, whatever, like I'll just get another passport, you know, if they're into that, or they'll just do whatever. Do you know what I mean? So that's why I was like, I do like the consequences. I'm not sure if the passport is the right consequences, because there's a lot of people who are fine not going on holiday or not having ID. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think maybe it needs to be slightly different. I don't know what, but I think maybe not the passport. So that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you, Anissa, because that was where my mind went to, because I was just like, okay, but there are some people, for all of the kicking and screaming and dragging that you must do, they're still not gonna feel any impetus to take care of their child. So you can take their passport, they're still gonna be a deadbeat. And I'm not saying that there should be no consequence, but I'm not sure what the consequence should be, or what impetus there needs to be to make a person feel that they must do it.
Maybe also, prison.
Possibly. But also, with regard to the whole thing about you must take your contraception, and yeah, we all can. But the thing is, contraception is not 100%. Even if you use multiple methods. So the fact of the matter is you could put on the condoms, you could be on the pill, you could have the IUD, you could have every possible form of contraception available to you and still wind up pregnant. So it's highly unrealistic to expect people to just not have sex, because I'm sorry, but abstinence is just not a thing, okay? Even back in the days of like before we had condoms and before we had the pill and everything else, you know, back in the Middle Ages and everything else, people were still not abstinent. So it's highly unrealistic to expect people to just disengage from sex in order to not have children that they then will not take care of. But also, I feel like this whole passport step is less about actually taking consequences seriously with regard to this government and more about being seen to take the issue seriously. Because this government, I mean, didn't Marcus Rashford basically have to bully them into basically saying, yes, we will continue to provide free food for the poorest children among us. They had to be bullied, kicking, dragging, screaming, all through social media. Everybody had to drag them to within an inch of their life for them to basically say, yes, we will actually do our duty by the poorest children among us. So it's a case of, oh, okay, so we had to bully you into feeding the poorest children among us, but now you suddenly care so much that you're seizing passports. These two things don't add up necessarily to me. And I'm not sure what the answer is. I just know that this doesn't seem to be an effective solution, or as effective as they think it will be.
I've made up my mind now. Definitely prison. Sorry. Just listening to Tariyé sorry, not to cut you off, Sophie. It's definitely prison. That literally was what is in my mind. Prison.
I
Because
don't understand
the reason why I say it's prison, the reason why I say it's prison, right? Because not taking care of your child, I'm not even going into laying down and abstinence and all that stuff, okay? The child is here, okay? Not taking care of your child, to me, is a form of you abandoning the child and neglect. People go to prison for neglecting their children every day, B. And so I personally feel like if you are not playing an active role in your child's life, whether that be physically, financially, spiritually, emotionally, all the things, you should go to prison for neglect. That's where I've sat on the line now, because there are a lot of single parents, and there's been lots of incidents where single mothers have been reprimanded and gone to prison for neglect because, for example, they've had to work all day and the kid is a latch door kid or whatever, and has had an accident at home, and now they're saying the mum's a neglect. But what happened to the dad? No one would choose to want to be away. So personally for me, prison, that is the answer. I think prison. Sorry, Sophie, go ahead.
I was going to say, like, I feel like taking the passport is way less harsh than sending them to prison and giving them a criminal record.
No, Sophie, prison is where they need to go.
How are they going to get a job after that to even pay the child support? It's rough out here for offenders.
I don't care.
It's rough out here for the ex-cons, man.
I agree. And I think in terms of the passport, I think the passport hits them in the selfishness. So where it's kind of like, oh, where does it affect them? People, I'm just like, because it might affect you going places, not just in the country, but getting a job or applying for this or proving to, like, if you don't have a passport, you can't even apply for a mortgage. There's lots of things that you can't do if you don't have a passport. And I think it hits them in selfishness, like, okay, so you're going to be impacted. And then once you're willing to pay, because like you're saying, if a man is not paying or a woman is not paying for child support, you're not going to get them on the moral incentive to do it. Because they're not paying it. There's no morality in not paying or contributing what you have. And I'm not talking about men who have been furloughed or men who have lost their job. Obviously, circumstances happen and you might need to lessen it. I understand that. But I'm talking about there's 28% of men in the United Kingdom who are not paying child support. That 28% is not, that's like what, nearly a third? Nearly a third of men aren't paying it. And that's not because all of them just are down on their luck and, can't find a job. Some people are willfully not doing it. And in terms of the abstinence, no, I disagree. You can be abstinent if you want to be abstinent. You can be safe if you want to be safe. I'm a stand there and I'm gonna die on that hill because I will die on the hill because I just feel like, fair enough, you might not think about every guy who you're gonna marry or men the same way as well, but I'm just like, for me, sex is sacred. Why would you want to join your body with someone who is just a deadbeat and is just a waste of space? For me, that doesn't.
But sometimes
make
you
sense.
don't know that they're
Exactly.
But that's why I'm saying. That's why I'm saying wait and get to know them, because men or women can't hide their deadbeatness. A woman whose waist is not going to be able to hide that if you wait them out and just get to know them. That's what I'm saying. Now, if that's not people's choice, that's fine. But to say that, it's ridiculous to assume that people can choose not to have sex. No, it's not. There is a lot of people who choose to be abstinent.
And I would say, I think we also need to do more about confronting the deadbeats. I know this is a side topic, but I'm 100% sure. I personally don't date men with kids. I haven't. I'm not opposed to it because I've had step parents my whole life and I have thoroughly enjoyed them as bonus parents. So I don't have an issue with being a step parent. I just have not gone there yet. And I always, whenever I am approached about a man with kids, I am always very detailed in the questions I ask about the role that he plays in his kid's life. Yeah. And some people may say that it's extra, but I'm trying to understand. I'm asking you, how often do you see your kid? Yeah. And you may tell me every other weekend. And I might say, well, don't you want to be more active? Because for me, I'm like, well, you and the mum are split up and she works and you work. Don't you think it's fair that you take the child 2 weeks of the month and then the mum takes the child 2 weeks of the month? So everyone has an even split of looking after the child and everyone is playing as an active as a role, fairly split. And then that way you won't have to pay her money because you'll be looking after the child for 2 weeks a month. Like, I'm literally always reasoning with men about how they look after their kids. And it's like, no, every other weekend is fine. I've got things to do. I'm working. I'm thinking, but you told me she works. So don't you think she's struggling as well? And she might need her evenings the way that you need it. So I am always, I be confronting them dads because I'm like, no, it's not good enough, sir. Personally, for me, there's no reason why. Like, for me, perfect example, Chris Brown takes his daughter for half of the month and her mother has her for the other half of the month, royalty. If Chris Brown, who's pop locking all over the world on the stage, can have his daughter with him for 2 weeks of the month, he goes on tour, everything, 2 weeks of each month, halfway split, then you can. And even if you just look in the reflective way of his custody, he only pays his baby mother three grand or 4 grand a month because he does all the money that he would give her if she was a full-time parent. He's half of a full-time parent, so he spends all his money with him. It's not impossible to look after your kid. It is a choice that you are actively choosing, and that's why you have to confront the deadbeats. And I'll leave it at that.
The only thing
you're totally
is about the 2 weeks. The only thing about the splitting the time is because I know exactly what you mean. Because even if you pay child maintenance, throwing money at a situation doesn't mean that you're actively playing a role and fulfilling it. You're not playing a role for the child.
You're not there every day.
When you look at, exactly, and it really impacts a kid not having one parent in their life, whether they're raised by all women because they just happen to be in that environment and dad's not involved, or they're raised by a lot of men because the dad's involved and the dad's brothers. Except no one can fulfill the role of a missing dad or a missing mum. So yes, I agree that throwing money at a situation isn't the be all and end all. But at the same time, the whole split of having children here and there, it is very disruptive. This is coming from someone who I said has been a carer of my niece and nephew and had to do that whole sharing guardianship. It is so difficult. The disruption that it causes the child mentally, is very, very difficult. For Chris Brown, he might be able to be, but his child is a lot older. I don't know how long he's been doing this, but his child is, what's she, about 8, 9?
No,
Yeah,
she's
she's
like
about 9.
5, 6. Oh, is she?
Oh, I thought she was like 9. Well,
I
No,
thought she was
no.
about 9 as well.
Who knows?
I'm not 100%
Who
sure.
knows? Who knows?
Who knows?
No,
Sorry,
but my
Willie.
point is that I'm guarantee there's a lot of things that's been implemented to make it a lot easier for the child. So
Yeah.
maybe there'll still be maybe the same familiar
Nanny or
faces in terms
something.
of like childcare nanny. Exactly. When there's not being taken from one household to another household is so difficult. There is, and I know it can happen the same when there's 2 parents in the house because it's 2 different personalities, but when you're not in that household, you can't really police things. So different parenting styles, different behaviors, different environments. At this house, I go to bed at 8 o'clock. At this house, I go to bed at 9 o'clock. And I know there are things that can be discussed, but just that disruption, it's a lot on a child. So if that necessarily wasn't really something that was put into practice, it makes it even more difficult, because although that makes sense, it just reverts back to the money, but that's still not enough to fill the void. And the more I'm talking about it, the more I'm thinking, maybe it is prison then. Maybe. But
I think it was really the gist. I think it was really the gist of what Anissa was saying in terms of like men need to be present, and it's not just financially.
Definitely.
Yes,
like,
that's
if
it. You need to share it equally.
Exactly. I knew my friend, she dated, I can't say her name because she would kill me, but she was talking to a guy who had a kid, and she was like, she really loves children. She wasn't really here for being a stepmom, but she's kind of like, do you know what? Yeah, she was just like, I'm open to it if I meet the right guy. So she was like, you got a picture? He was like, oh, no, I don't have a picture. This child was not a toddler. Even if they were a toddler, like, my point is, there are certain things that women need to do to try and kind of find out what kind of man it is, because never think that a man is going to be one sort of father to one child and then your child's going to come along and they're going to be different. And if they are, that just sickens me even more.
Yeah,
because
same.
I just feel like if there's other children, they need to be brought in, like, they still, when they can come round, then they come round and we're a family and all of that. Like, it just... I just don't understand. And then it's usually same men or women who will leave. And I've known women that have left and then they come back round later because they start to feel like, I really want to be part. But this is now when the child is grown, and it's just, hopefully you're not a mother or a father that will stop, never talk bad about the other parent, no matter what is going on. I am not here for that either. That child is half of that person, so that person needs to be respected, and that door needs to stay open. But you are going to miss just some of the most wonderful experiences of your life in seeing this child develop and become in person. And to think that you want to try and get away with paying as little as possible, it just makes me really upset.
It's nasty.
I guess, but the thing I'm now thinking is that even with 2 parents in the household, where both people are there and in the household, even so, we still wind up with so many situations where one parent is doing all of the heavy lifting and the other parent can't even remember what the child is allergic to and everything else. There are so many parents who, even though there's 2 parents in the house, it's still kind of technically de facto a single parent household, because one parent is doing all of the heavy lifting and they're remembering the doctor's appointments, remembering who's allergic to what, remembering what medication, etc., remembering all these little points of minutia that you need to keep on top of if you're raising a child. So back to the whole issue of the passports thing. I'm completely with you that we need to confront the deadbeats, but at the same time, I'm just there thinking, but man, like, even if you take a passport, there's still, you can take the passport, and there's some people for whom they're still perfectly fine with that. They're like, I'm perfectly fine not having my passport. I'm perfectly fine not having this. I'm perfectly fine not having any access to this, that, and the other thing. Such is their commitment to not wanting to take care of their child. And then for those particular instances, my question is then, what do we do?
I do feel, though, that taking away the passport does have consequences, like a bargaining chip. Because as Sophie said, if you can't get to their, like, if you can't try to liaise with them morally, them not having their passport, them saying that they're perfectly fine. Yeah, but babes, there's going to be a time where you're not going to be perfectly fine. You never know what you're going to come across. If you need it for a mortgage, like I said, photo identification when it comes to jobs, going on holiday, there's going to open in a new bank, Who knows? I mean, if you're a bad person, bad karma's going to follow you all the way around. So you're going to need that passport one day. It is going to hit you, and then you're going to need the passport. So if it has to be a bargaining chip file, you're not going to be able to do anything until you do this. And also, I think Anissa, you said maybe they could apply for another one. The Department of Work and Pension has the ability to reject it for 2 years, even if you did go to apply for it. So they're
Sorry,
putting
Monah,
things
I
in
wasn't
motion
talking
for-
about legal ways. I was not talking about legal
Oh.
ways. But let's keep moving on.
So they're trying to make it as tight as possible so there isn't any wiggle room, because the matter of the fact
Yes.
is this child support maintenance system, it's heavily flawed and people can manipulate it. So I think what they're trying to do is put in as many barriers as they can where it's just difficult to do so. If you if this isn't to be in this situation, you're not a good person anyway. You don't want to take responsibility. It's not about what you want to do. It's about what they have to do. So just trying to back people into a corner where they have to pay their child support. You can't make someone turn up to shows, make them go to plays, make them go to basketball games. They can't do that, unfortunately. But if you can get them to part from their money, however you do it, has to be done. And like Sophie said, I did say, oh, is it prison? And I'm still like, but if they did go to prison, that would affect their employability. Then there would be no funds to. So it's just like, how do we do it in a way where morally, ethically, it makes sense, but it's still able to put the deadbeats in a tough situation where they have to give their money to the child.
And that's good. I've said prison. I do feel like it needs to be that extreme.
I'm backing that.
But maybe not prison, because it has to just be something that morally it's not going to move them. So we have to do something legally that obligates them. But you know what's so interesting? When I was looking at this, I saw a lot of men complaining about this, basically saying it was an attack on the family by doing this. And it really rubbed me the wrong way. I thought, this is the attack on the family. Like, that's a bit strange. I thought you not looking after your kid was the attack on the family.
Yeah.
And so I saw a lot of people, and men in particular, complaining because as we've said, the child maintenance is heavily flawed. And I've just forgotten my point because of the ding. But yeah, I saw a lot of the child maintenance, they said, is heavily flawed. And that's the only hesitance that I have with them stepping in to take the passport away, because I do believe it's flawed, but I do believe something needs to be done. And I think it's kind of like what we've said. We just don't know what.
I agree. Beautifully summed up. I think we've got loads of back and forth on this situation because it is a heavy topic and we are trying to think about ideas that could be the best outcome. So thank you for watching and listening to Ethnically Speaking. Let's keep the conversation going. What are your thoughts? Do you feel that revoking a parent's passport for non-payment is justified? Let us know in the comments down below. For a summary of everything we've spoken about today, head over to unitedmillenniumgroup.com/ESO60. There's a link in the description below. If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Click that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. Ethnically Speaking will be back soon. Until then, wear your masks, wash your hands, keep your distance, and most of all, stay safe.
Hey Ethnically Speaking family, it's your girl Sophie Hannah here, and we hope that you have loved watching and listening to us for the past 10 months. It has been a wild ride, but we have loved every single minute of it. And as you know, we have been on the hunt for some new hosts to join us, and I can tell you that the casting process is finally complete. And in order to close this chapter, we are going to be taking a little break. But don't worry, we are going to be back on your screens and in your ears from Friday the 16th of April, bringing you a brand new lineup who are going to be bringing you more controversial opinions, more knowledge bombs, and more hilarious stories that you love. We cannot wait for you to see what we have in store for you for the rest of 2021. But until then, you can catch up on all the episodes that you've missed right here. So keep watching, keep listening, and we are going to see you again next week.